Hi, my name is Bhavesh Patel and I'm head of software engineering at Outset Medical. We just finished our Unplugged session today and we have our guest Neil there with me. Neil has been the serial entrepreneur. One of the interesting things about Neil is he has worked in many different industries and he has made a huge impact in every industry he has touched. So he has worked into high-tech, retail, finance, food industry, and now in the medical industry. So Neil, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So it's a good summary of my career. I guess I've worked at the world's smallest companies and some of the world's largest companies and everything in between.
Yeah. So how would you describe your career overall?
So I've generally been focused on consumer problems of one sort or another and trying to find ways to apply technology to real-world problems in a way that makes the technology disappear into the background and solves whatever the user's specific issue is.
Okay. So, Neil, you have basically worked in all these different industries. How do you use the technology to make an impact in all this different variety of the industry?
Yeah. So I'm very interested in the consumer's problems, and then I also like exploring new technologies and what things are becoming possible because of changes in technology. And the exciting thing for me is figuring out how you marry the problem with a new opportunity in technology to create something very different.
So you are the entrepreneur who looks for the problem to solve rather than look for the solution and then try to find a problem?
Yeah, much more start with the problem and find a solution. For instance, with Perfect Coffee, the problem was how do you make great coffee reliably at home? And as we discussed earlier, it's all about getting the grind size exactly right for the particular coffee and the way that you're going to brew it. And so the way to do that was developing a technology that allowed you to characterize and reproduce grind very accurately. So once we kind of knew what the problem was, we could then go search the portfolio of technology to find the ones that let you do that and do it reliably and seamlessly.
Got it. That was a really interesting problem you're trying to apply the technology to, because finding the grains and the size to make a perfect coffee, that's kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah, it was interesting, and it was a perspective that, for whatever reason, people hadn't really focused on. I think in the coffee industry, lots of people understood the importance of grind size, but nobody had really, as far as I could tell, stepped back and said, okay, well, if grind size is the problem, what's the solution to that? So.
Interesting, actually. I didn't even think that was a problem.
Most people don't.
Yeah. The other thing I have is, so you have worked in a lot of different startups over the time. And a lot of people kind of have this challenge of, do you stay in the company or do you bail out of the company and kind of start another startup or join another startup? So what are the criteria people should think of when they make this kind of a decision?
Yeah. So I think one of the important things when you're deciding to start something or join something early is making sure that you're really excited about it and you can sustain that excitement through all of the ups and downs that the company is inevitably going to go through. And so that's, as I mentioned earlier, why I tend to like to live with things for 6 or 9 months before I really kind of commit to starting a company, to make sure I have that endurance, if you will. But that leads to another problem, which is you can get too wrapped up and emotionally involved with the problem to make good decisions about when it's time to throw in the towel. And there's a lot of complexity to this. If you're the founder of a startup, you have commitments to your employees and to your investors, and for me, that's very important. And so I think a lot about that as a founder or CEO, that I'm responsible for many other people's journey. But another important aspect of this is you need to understand what you're trying to accomplish, and if you're getting closer to the goal or moving farther away from it. And with Media Master, as we discussed, we got lots of signals that we were never going to reach the goal. And I think we were actually too slow to respond to some of those signals, but we nonetheless did it in a reasonable amount of time. So one of the hard parts, once you're invested in an idea, is deciding when it's time to throw in the towel or move on. And the thing that I try to look for is when you're not making progress towards whatever your goal is. So for instance, with Media Master, it was very clear that we weren't going to get the industry agreements and licenses that we needed in order to run the business, and no amount of money, legal or persuasion was going to get us across that line. And so we had to make a decision as to whether we wanted to keep going that way or reset the business model. And we knew from looking at other examples in the industry that there really weren't many good options there. So at that point, the investors and my co-founder and I had to decide what to do with the company, and we actually turned it into an acqui-hire for a retailer because we had a great engineering team. So.
All right. Thank you, Neil. Thanks for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.